Final block of the sweat here to bring us home are DraftKings contributors Matt LaMarca and Rotowire's Nick Whalen. Let's start with the prop, guys. A huge total points number for Steph Curry tonight. It's set at 35.5. Matt, is this too high or too low?
It is crazy high, but I still think I like the over. The big thing to monitor here is Kelly Oubre's status. We still don't know if he's in or out. That said, he is dealing with a pretty significant injury. So I think there's a good chance he misses this game. And Curry in 10 games without Oubre this season is averaging 39.3 points per game. So he's got a nice matchup tonight versus the Thunder. The Thunder have actually played pretty fast. They're 5th in pace, and they also rank 23rd in defensive efficiency. So the only real concern I have is that this game turns into a blowout. The Warriors are favored by a pretty significant margin. But as long as Curry is on the floor for 34, 35 minutes, I think he can get us 40 in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, he's averaged 34.8 points per game in the last 6 games. That's a lot.
Yeah, and this prop is right on his average, 35.5 over the last 10 games. So it's really tough. I think I side with Matt. As long as you think that this game's not going to be a complete blowout, I really see no reason why Steph Curry can't go over. You know, the Thunder defense is certainly nothing to write home about at this point in the season. Like Matt said, they're 5th in pace on the year. They're up to 3rd in the last 10 games. So they're playing even more quickly of late. You know, we really don't know the status of some of their regulars. Obviously, they don't have a ton of great defenders outside of Lou Dort on this team. So to me, it just comes down to how close is this game? Do the Warriors need Steph Curry to play 37 minutes? If they do, I think he's almost a lock to go over.
All right, well, Nets are favored over the Mavs tonight at -4. They haven't been great without James Harden. So is a 4-point spread too high or too low here, Nick?
I think it's a little too low, maybe colored by those 2 losses to Milwaukee over the last few nights here. I think, the Bucks are kind of rounding into form as we near the playoffs. And obviously the Nets are dealing with the absence of Harden and still kind of working through some issues with that front court. And I think they've been a little bit more vulnerable there since losing LaMarcus Aldridge, who only played a few games for them and is 35 years old. But that was a big addition for a team that really doesn't have a lot of depth at the center spot right now. With that said, Dallas is not Milwaukee. I think it's a bit of a step down, even though they do have Luka Doncic. No Porzingis, no Maxi Kleber. There's not a ton of depth on this Dallas team. I mean, they have lost to the Sacramento Kings twice in the last 5 or 6 games here. So the floor is a bit lower for this Dallas team night to night. With healthy Kevin Durant, healthy Kyrie Irving, I think the Nets do bounce back tonight and cover the spread.
Matt, what do you think?
This one's really close for me. If you look at the Nets this season with Durant and Irving on the floor and Harden off the floor, their net rating is only about 2.9 points per 100 possessions. They're an offensive juggernaut. They're scoring 121 points essentially in that situation. So they don't necessarily need Harden from an offensive perspective to score the ball, but they are allowing 118.1 points. So Dallas is also playing really well recently. They're 7-3 over their last 10 games. Ironically enough, all 3 losses coming to the Sacramento Kings. So I'm not sure what to make of that because the Kings are not a particularly good team, but they've posted a net rating of closer to 7 or 8 in those contests. So I kind of like Dallas if I was forced to choose a side here. I think ultimately my favorite bet in this game is probably just taking the over, right? These are 2 teams that are scoring a ton of points at the moment. So I see no reason why they can't do it against each other.
Okay, Pacers and Hawks both played last night. Matt, Indiana didn't break 100 against the Kings, while Atlanta put up 135 in a win over Phoenix. So where do you stand on the total of 240 points tonight for these two? Do you feel like it's too high or too low?
Yeah, Indiana has just let me down all year. I'm just not sure why they aren't better, right? I mean, right now they're dealing with a bunch of injuries at least, but just all year I feel like this team has not played up to their potential. I do think that this game is probably an under for me. Just looking at the betting activity, which is something I like to do, 55% of the bets are on the under, but 84% of the dollars. To me, that tells me that the early sharp activity is coming in on the under in this contest. So That's where I'm going to side.
Nick, you going under as well?
I think I am. Yeah, I mean, you see some of these totals that the Pacers have put up, and they're number one in pace in the league over the last 15 games, and that's only been exacerbated over the last 10. I mean, they had a 141-point game where they allowed 154 in regulation to Washington earlier this week. They put up 152 against OKC on Saturday, regularly in the one teens into the low 120s. But everything kind of came crashing down last night against Sacramento. And, some of these injuries that, we keep thinking Malcolm Brogdon's going to play, he's questionable game to game, and now he's missed 3 or 4 in a row. Chances are he probably remains out on a back-to-back. But, more concerning to me is that I think there's a chance that this Indiana team is very close to just kind of mailing it in, at least on the rest of the regular season. I mean, if you watched last night, it was kind of a players versus coaches, borderline, almost turning into a bit of a screaming match, in the game where you have an assistant coach, running down to go yell at his own player mid-game. And if you watch the reaction, like, I don't think the players have really any receptiveness toward this coaching staff right now. And obviously you don't want to read into that too much, but I think morale is really, really low for Indiana right now. And that makes it really hard to go out and give it your all for 48 minutes when you're maybe not particularly fond of the people who are coaching you up throughout that. So I could see this being a letdown defensive effort for Indiana, but I don't see them scoring enough to hit the over in this game.
All right, Slate Proof Pick Time, guys. Favorite bet on the DK Sportsbook. Matt, what is it?
Well, it's the game we didn't get to. I'm taking the Toronto Raptors, favorite against the Washington Wizards. Toronto's basically back at full strength. They won't have OG Anunoby tonight, but they should have Lowry and Van Vliet. They have just been snake bit all year. They're much better than their current record.
Nick, Slate approved.
I like that one as well. I think I'm going to take OKC, though, to cover the 14 points against Golden State. We talked about what it's going to take for Curry to hit the over in that game. I think it's going to have to remain relatively close. And I think, assuming Kelly Oubre doesn't play, I'm not sure Golden State has the horses to make this a complete blowout. I think they win comfortably, but not quite by 14.